of holy angels that's going to come right into our atmosphere. Do you understand? Right in, up close and personal, to do the harvesting of the souls of men. You've heard of heaven and hell and all that, right? So it's one of those kind of deals where you either make it or you don't. There's going to be only two sides of this thing. You're either one of the weeds or you're one of the cultivars. You made it or you didn't. Your heart was pure enough or it wasn't. Okay? So we should all be very thankful that Christ did what he did for us and took away the sting of death. You know, there's a whole lot more laughter now. But if you look in a concordance, look up the word laugh. I mean, they used to laugh at each other derisively. You might hear of that. But it's not, they didn't used to laugh. Death was such a mournful, grievous thing for people that, I mean, the world came to an end. They lament and, oh my God, horrible, horrible, horrible death, the finality, the horror, and you can see it. But then Christ came and he was raising up dead people to prove that God has that power. The last say, it's just beautiful. And then himself, the Father, raised up Jesus. Okay, do you understand how beautiful this whole thing is? It's important people to know this is comforting news. This is good news. That's what the gospel is. Death swallowed up in victory. So people, this horrible thing, they believed it. It's not true. It's a lie from the pit of hell. That's a beautiful thing. All right, friends, enough pontificating. I got to hurry up on to some recent current events. I stopped watching the world news now. I found out I'd rather watch Judge Judy in that 6:30 to 7 slot. So less stressful. So I'm a little out of touch, but I get it. The local news, I watch some of that stuff. So, I know it's all about the coronavirus. I have no idea what they used to report about before that was of any import. Last week I mentioned that my dad lived another 30 years, and actually it was 40 years. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Doctors gave him 5 years to live. He was in his mid-30s, but he lived to be 86, so that was actually 40 years longer. He got into nutrition, supplement stuff, but he knew a lot, taught me a lot. I've been a part owner of a health food store that he helped start down in the Santa Cruz area. But also last week I was talking about the idea, how these people, these aggressive investors, it's like Monopoly. Could you imagine playing Monopoly and you could take as much money as you wanted from the bank, right? You understand? That's what it is. So they sew it up. They sew up the game. They buy all the property and there's nothing for sale anymore. And if they say, well, they cock you, sell it, but, it's going to cost you more and more and more burden. But, we're told that's value by the mainstream media. You understand how it's a totally rigged game, okay? That's what I was hitting on earlier. I was talking about the artificial suffering. We know about the organic suffering we all have to experience across the board. So I'm not complaining and bitching about that, but it's the artificial invented stuff, okay, like the wealth imbalance, the theft of labor, the normalization of slavery. Really, they've done this. The Labor Department that's supposed to set the federal minimum wage, completely, utterly, deliberately, in my estimation, remiss. I profit that to you, okay? That is the way it is. It's that simple. They had to be in on this thing because they could have given commensurate cost of living adjustments 1 year at a time, and it wouldn't sound radical if you said, well, just to have the equivalent buying power of that dollar an hour minimum wage, federal minimum wage in the early 1960s, we need to make it X. Okay, and I'm not even going to say what X is, but put two and two together and see what was the buying power, explore that, research what I'm saying. You could be a homeowner, one spouse, one person working in the family, disposable income. That's America I knew growing up as a kid. I remember that's how it was. My parents paid $8,000 arm's length transaction purchase down in Santa Cruz for a suburban house, single family house in 1965, 66, in that range. Okay? So you tell me, my dad was living on a VA pension at that time, like $200 a month probably at most from the Marine Corps, disability from his multiple sclerosis. And that's about what you'd clear on a minimum wage job. I know he wasn't getting any more than that. because that was sufficient to support your whole family. So you understand why I point these things out? And this is crazy that we're all so stupid and disempowered, and it's like divided, and we're a mess. We're a mess. We're in dire straits. I mean, it scares me. I feel my heart sometimes want to beat through my chest. I mean, I'm so on fire for God's will. I'm trying not to be anxious because I know He's going to do it in His time, on His terms. But I'm scared for us that so many people aren't getting it. They're not, jumping ship and being born again in that sense and purifying themselves before God and just saying, you know what? If 99% of people want to, don't care about the stuff and don't see the relevance in caring about your soul and where you're going from here, so be it. That's their prerogative. That's what you can do. You can try to be palatable and to be effective and win them over, because you want everybody, and you don't want to live later and say, well, what did you do to try to win them over? Pull them out of the flames that were lapping at their behind. What did you do? You understand? We're all accountable. And in our right minds, we want to be. Okay, it's that simple. Sometimes I think this TMZ Live and Harvey and Charles, sometimes I think they're stirring the pot a little bit with this race thing. Because they showed a different scenario where because the cops didn't shoot a white guy that drove away, then he showed his hands to him. But, Harvey and Charles were outraged that the cops didn't shoot this white guy that drove away from them because they shot the black guy that just had a knife or something, or threatened him with a knife while he was walking away from them to his vehicle. But I'm not justifying that. What happened to batons? I mean, there's other less lethal things they can do, for God's sake, at this point in time. But anyhow, and I wish they would point out the vast majority of the homeless people are white. More and more females too, which is very disconcerting. And talk about stuff like that, you guys. Come on. I was happy to see on the news that solar roads are already being built. That's really cool. Wow, the sky's the limit there. Free energy for everybody. All right, friends, I'm on to a couple of thoughts from the last week or so. Friends, I do a lot of thinking. And one of the things I've concluded from all that thought is that life is supposed to get easier and easier for us humans. Certainly, progress cannot suggest that our lives should get harder and harder. Yeah, and all we can do sometimes is control things, at least in our own lives. Like, I like to make things easier and easier. I like to improve things. One day, there's always chores to do, and there's always ways we can make our lives a little bit better and tangible, though seemingly menial or small ways, but yet it still helps us psychologically to cope sometimes. I think just feeling like we have control to make our own lives a little easier, a little less burdensome, to work a little better stuff. So we fix stuff, we improve stuff, we make it easier, we make it better. Ultimate, infinite, free will imagination of thought and of choice is what distinguishes us from other fauna. It literally renders us godlike animal creatures, cosmic creatures. Through overwhelming empirical evidence, we notice that humans do not always choose those things that are in our best interests. By extension, by default position, we can then fairly surmise that we all ought minimize the types, levels, depths, and degrees of the mistakes we make. So then, am I reaching to say it's smart to be nice and nice to be smart? When we are simply honest, we will choose correctly. Through empirical, observable evidence, we can clearly deduce that invariably the nicest people are always the smartest people too. Then, through converse extension, we can reasonably deduce that the meanest people, by default position, are also the dumbest people. Well, friends, I got to say bye. Listen, have a great day and have a great eternity. Best to you, best to your families. Same things I want for myself, I want for you.